to this point, all of the schematic and PCB design work that I've done has been with a tool called EasyEDA. And specifically, I've been using the standard edition. And it's overall been great. It really is easy to use. It gives me access to some libraries of existing components, both supplied by the vendor and also supplied by the community. And I've been able to, quite easily build my schematics, build the PCBs, order the PCBs, and that's all been good. But it seems like more recently I'm hitting a few things in the tool that maybe are a little bit annoying or just don't work well. And what I think I'm going to do is now try a different edition of EasyEDA. They do have a Pro edition. And this is a more recent product. I don't know if you want to call it an upgrade to the standard edition that's been out for many years. Which is what I've been using again, and the Pro version I've not really used. What I have tried up to this point is to import some existing standard projects. That's all failed miserably. I've created a new blank project and kind of looked around the user interface a little bit and thought, this seems a lot more complicated than the standard edition. But I think it's where I'm at, is I need to now kind of get in here and learn this. Now, there are other tools like KiCad, and I think KiCad is something that, I've done schematics in it, and that seems like it's pretty straightforward. I've not done PCB work yet in there, although I do plan to do that at some point, just to kind of learn that tool, because I think that's probably more of a standard tool than EasyEDA standard or Pro would be. But I want to kind of play around with Pro and just see if at this point the stuff that I've learned over the last year or so helps me use the Pro version, or if I still find it maybe difficult to use. So I'm going to go into this having spent maybe a total of 15 minutes up to this point in EasyEDA Pro. And again, that was really to try to import some existing stuff that didn't work out and to create a new project and try to start creating a new footprint or 3D model, and just real quickly looking at the user interface. But I thought what I would do in this video is just kind of stumble my way through using EasyEDA Pro to create a new component. In a previous YouTube video I posted, I had made a custom component in EasyEDA Standard, and it's this component that you see off to the right, this 68 pin, it's called an EBBI connector. So I had made a standard component in Standard, basically this EasyEDA Standard. I put that on a little PCB and actually ended up ordering that PCB just as a test PCB. I'm going to try to do the same thing here in the Pro, and just to see what it looks like. And so I'm going to stumble my way through this. I may fast forward a bunch of pieces. I may do some cuts as I have to look up some different things. But I'm going into this with practically no experience in Pro. And I'm going to see if I can somehow get this connector here set up as a reusable component, and then create a basic PCB that leverages that component, just to see how that process all goes. So I think what I'll do to start is I'm going to come over here. I did make just a folder called Pro Projects. So I went into my workspace and said create a new folder. And this is just where I want to place projects that are the professional projects. These were probably some older ones that I tried to upgrade that failed. And then I can see some folders from, this is probably carryover from the standard stuff. It doesn't show anything in them because all the projects I have are the standard edition projects. But it looks like I've got 4 Pro projects that are showing up here. But I made this folder for anything that I'm going to do at this point. And I'm going to start by just creating a new project. And I'm going to call it, test EBBI 68. And I think if I look at this, I can either go with a receptacle or a plug. Those were the two that I previously built. And I think maybe for this, I'll just go ahead and do the plug. So I want to build a test project here for that. And I'm going to go ahead and open that, it looks like. And that is popping up on my other screen. So I will bring that over here. And so it looks like this is the user interface I get at that point. So I have a schematic that I can build out, and this, as I kind of look around, I can come and pick. Well, let's see here. If I look to the right, I have my normal things like power and grounds and my different net flags. It looks like up here I can pick different components, whether they're system components. So there are a lot of components. Maybe it looks like they've been trying to add in more and more here. Maybe personal components if I get some of those built, things like that. It looks like there's standard, what you would expect, resistors, capacitors, things like that. And then wires and buses, and a lot of the stuff looks similar to what I would have seen before. Short flag I don't think I used before, and there's some other symbols here that don't look familiar that I'll have to learn my way through. But it looks like I've got a schematic I can work on. It looks like I can have a PCB that goes with that. This already looks, quite a bit different, and just the orientation of all this. So a bunch of stuff I'm going to have to work my way through. But what I want to be able to do is take, this component here, and this is just the data sheet for this Molex connector. And I want to be able to build a reusable component that essentially, is the correct spacing for these pins and these holes for mounting, and basically take in this and maybe show the 3D model and all that as I go through this. So it seems like I'm going to have to come in here and create, something. And if I do a file new, I can see I can make a new component. I can make a new 3D model. I can make a footprint. So all of that I can create here. And maybe I'm going to start with a 3D model. And I did just try this real quickly earlier, and that was about pretty much as far as I got with this. But it does seem like I can now go out and I can browse out to where I might have some of these models. So here I'm going to go ahead and browse out for a 3D model that I want to bring into the system. And I'm going to jump to a location here where I have already downloaded and extracted this step file or STP file. And I'm going to use this plug, and I'm going to go ahead and say open. And it looks like I can choose which unit of measurement, millimeters good, and I can put this in a category. But basically, as I do this, it shows that it's seeing this plug inside of that, and that's good. So I'm going to hit save. So that should be bringing the 3D model into the system. And if I go to 3D models, I might have two of them in here now. So I'm going to go down to personal. And so I did it once real quick as a test. You can see just an hour ago. I'm going to see if I can just delete that one. And yes, I'm going to delete that. One thing I do notice right away with this version, the Pro version though, is I can directly pull in those step files, and it looks like it's rendering nicely. In the standard version, I had to convert the step file to an OBJ file, and then I would pull it into EasyEDA standard, and this would all come through as just one big black. I wasn't getting the nice visual lighting feel that you're seeing here. So this looks much better already just by going to the Pro version. So I've added into my personal library a 3D model for this plug. And this is one that I had just downloaded, this 3D step file off of one of the vendor websites that I've been using. So I've got that and can use that now. And then it seems like the way this is going to work, and maybe I can go pull up the help file. And when I say help file, just their help documentation here that they have posted. But it seems like if I want to create a new device, they're saying that there's a logical order that I'm going to create a device, which a device is a symbol and a footprint and a 3D model, and then set some other properties. And they show that I can come in and create new things. And probably the first step maybe is to create a new device. So I think that's what I'm going to try to work with here. So if I do a file new, There's not a device that I see here, but it seems like I can go back to the other start page, and I believe there was device is what they were showing. So new device right here. So I'm going to make a device, and I think I'm just going to call this. Let's see, what do I have for choices? Yeah, let's go component. I'm going to go with an EBBI 68 receptacle. And I'm going to add in the part number for that, which is an 8753788812. And the rest of this I'm going to leave for now. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And so now it looks like I have a new device. And let's try out this line pins functionality. Oh yeah, that's really nice. So I can quickly add, so I'm going to have 68, so maybe 34 per side. And so there I can create 34. And now I'm up through 68. So there's my 68 pins basically. And maybe I don't want them in that orientation. Maybe I want to change that. I can, of course, choose how I want to do that. But let me look at the data sheet and just see a couple things real quick. And it looks like, my pin numbers are going to mostly, at least the way it's going to sit on the PCB, be my 1 through, the first half of them here, 34, and then I'm going to go with pin 35. So if it's a 68 pin, half of that is 34 plus 1 is 35. So this is pin 35 is how I read this. So pin 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I work my way up through the rest of them. So I might want to have a visual that shows 1 through 34 and then 35 on up. And that's maybe not how this is laid out. So I'm going to delete those and try to just change the order of it. And so there is my 34. And there's my 68. Let's see, maybe I'll pull these together because I don't need so much space. These look like they're backwards, so let me see if I can flip those vertically. Something like that. And I'll just draw a box. And so maybe that's what I want the connector to look like. And of course, I'm sure I can rotate this. And so I could maybe have it visually show up like that. I'm going to leave it like this. I kind of like that better. And I will just put some text in it that says EBBI 68 plug. And I'm going to put the number back in there, 875378812. Okay, so I've got something like that. So let me go ahead and save that. So that would be a footprint that maybe I'll use for this. And I think I saw a message pop up. I missed it. There was something that popped up there, but I'll have to come back to that. It might have been that this isn't. Let's see, let me try to get this moved. I'm going to put it in the center here. That's pretty close. And let me go ahead and I think I need to make a footprint. So let me make a new footprint. EBI 68 plug. Okay, so there's my footprint. So I've started the component. With the component, I have what this will look like when I'm drawing a schematic. Now I'm starting to lay out what the actual footprint is going to look like, and that is showing up under the footprint tab. So that all seems fine. So let me start to build this out. Now if I go back to my data sheet, let's just look at spacing here. So we've got pins that are 1.27 millimeter from column to column, or within the same row. That's going to be double that because it's going to go one column, next column, so 2.54. So I probably want my grid at 1.27, which it looks like it defaulted to 0.127, so that is going to work out fine. We've got the snap is at 0.127, and then there's an alt, like if I hold down the alt key and drag something, what does it snap to? And that might be a smaller number that I'll put in here in a little bit. Let's start out with, let's just get some of these pads down. So coming up to the toolbar, it looks like I've got my pad right here, and I'm just going to come in here. And there is my first pad, and maybe I might increase my grid size to 1.27. And maybe for now, I'm going to take and let's see, it took the snap size there automatically too, so that's good. Okay, so now when I pull this, it'll snap to these 1.27 grids. And I want to go, it looks like a pad here, and then 1.27 over. And then as far as how much do I need to come up, this appears to be showing that that would be a 1.905 vertically between these. So 1.905, I believe, is 1.27 times 1.5. So maybe I'll just pull up a calculator quickly. And if I go 1.27 and I divide that in half, that's a 0.635. And if I was going to add that to 1.27, that does get me to that. So that's good. So some nice easy numbers to work with. And so when I go back to this, my snap is 1.27. I'm going to divide that in half then. And again, 1.27 divided by 2 is this 0.635. Okay, so when I drag, it'll drag by default 1.27, but if I hold down the Alt, it'll drag half of that, is what I'm doing there. And coming back over here, then I want to go one full grid spot down and another half. That would give me my 1.95. So, okay, let me see. I got this, and I'm going to go ahead and add some more. The next one, then, I want to be one grid over and 1.5 up. So there's my drag. Alt drag gives me my 1.5. Okay, so now then I think I can just repeat that. And I've got these numbers backwards. So if I want to start at the right, one needs to be upper right. I'm just going to go right here for now. So this would be my 1 over, 1.5 down. Okay, so now it's 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to just quickly fill these in. So I'm keeping on the grid system. These default sizes for these are too big, so I'm going to back up a little bit. Seems like on this, let's look at what should I have for diameter. I'm reading this as I want a 0.8 for the diameter. And so that 0.8. And that'd be the drill hole. And then on top of that, I want 0.13 around that. And I think that's up here. So what I need to do is take 0.8 plus 0.13 plus 0.13. That'd give me a 1.06. So that's, I think, what I'm going to be using for the pad. So the pad is the 0.8. If I go back here, I'm reading that as that's going to be the drill hole plus a 0.13 millimeters on each side of that. And add that up, that gives me my 1.06, something like that. Now I'm curious if I do another pad, if it brings out those same values, and yeah, it does. So then I should be able to come in and say, okay, 1 over, should be like that, 1 more over, and again, here I'm just doing a regular drag and it's locking into that. Here, if I do a regular drag, that doesn't work. I need to do an alt drag to get that half step. Okay, so this should be, looking at this, we're going to go from there, 1.27, 1.27. We got my 1.905 down. Okay, so I think this is going to be laid out, or this is starting the approximately what I need to be seeing here. So let me just keep going through this. Okay, and then that ends up here, which should be 35. So it says n divided by 2. So 68 pin divided by 2, that should be pin 34. And then I'm going to go to pin 35 down here. So then that means I can come over here. And from this one, it should be the half down and then the full down. So I should be right there. That should give me my 1.5. And then I'm going to come over 1 and down 1/2. So this should be, I think, that spacing. Okay, so then I have that much of it built. And so that should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm working my way up. And then I get back over here to pin 35. And then I'm going to assume then 36, 7, 8, and work my way back up to 68, which is, they're saying N, so however many pins. And the reason they're saying N is that there are different versions of this connector. There's like an 80 pin, and then there's a smaller number of pin option too. And I'm working with a 68 pin. So my N is 68. So I've got my 1 through 68. I've got those laid out. The other thing I need to pay attention to here is these. And so it looks like I can just bring out another one of these. And for now, I'm just going to drop it there. And I need to have 2.6 for the diameter of the drill hole. And then I need this 0.13 on each side. Okay, so again, if I want to do calculator, 2.8 plus 0.13 plus 0.13 gives me my 3.06. And so I'll come set this 3.06. So it's going to look something like that. Now I've got to figure out where to place it. And if I look at this, it looks like from the center of that, I need to come over. So the center of the right pads here, I need to come over 3.7. And I'm sure there's different ways to do this, but the way I've done this in the past is just to use a measurement. And let's see, smart dimension, measure distance. And so I want to go from here over, and I'm just going to just drop it for now. Let's see if I can go from here to here. Okay, so this looks like it just measures but doesn't actually leave the measurement out. Looks like this is maybe the one I'm looking for. Yeah. Okay, so that's kind of nice that they've got some plain old measurement tools. In the past, what I've had to use is this, just bringing out and putting out my length. And the length I'm looking for, though, was 3.7. So I'm just going to go into this and set it to the 3.7. And that's where I know I'm going to have to take this and line it up with that. And so it's not quite lined up yet, but it's close. And then how far up and down, it looks like it's directly centered with this bottom row of pins. Okay, so I need to come up here, and I can hold down my Alt and get the halfway point, but I can't quite get it perfect on this centering the way I want it. And so then I've got to get that figured out. Okay, so vertically we're good. And if I go left, see that is moving too much at a time. So what I can do is I can come into the alt snap size, for example, and do a 0.0635. And now I can move this by that increment if I want. So let me see if I can dial that in the best I can here. Okay, that's probably good enough. And I don't think I really want this to have a pin number because there's not going to be anything connected to it. So I'll see if can I put in nothing. I cannot. Can I put in pin 0? I think I can. Okay, that's what I'm going to go with for now. I was going to see if I could leave this on EasyEDA standard. I believe I could leave the number empty, but that doesn't appear to work here. So I'm going to go pin 0 if it'll let me do that. And then I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste this. And I'll have to do the same thing over here. I'll grab this and bring it over here. So again, I can hold down the Alt and try to get this, just vertically placed right there. And this, I need to center there. And if I use this ruler real quick, just as a check, that appears to be right where it needs to be. Okay, so I have those at 3.7. Over, I have them aligned with the bottom here, and I should be good with all of that. Then the other thing I probably want to pay attention to here is the edge of the bottom PCB. So they're saying the PCB edge should be right here. And I probably want to somehow know that. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is figure out that distance. And it looks like that distance is 6.6 millimeters to the edge. So I could bring out another one of these ways to measure and just say, okay, we're going to go from here and have roughly 6.6. Set it there. Oops. Try that again. One thing I often do is once I click where I want it, you have to pull out where you want this to show up and click one more time. Okay, and so the documentation is showing 6.6 and 6.6. So this seems like this should then be the edge of the PCB that I'm going to put this adapter on, this plug into. So maybe what I'll do is, can I just draw a line? And really I just want this to mark more than anything where the edge is, but I'm going to go right there. Okay. And if I look at that, that's going to be in the top layer. All of this should be top layer or multi-layer in this case. But in this case, I'm going to convert this to, looks like I can do a slot region. So I'm going to do that. And I think that would then cut this out if I do it as a slot. But at least I know where my line is. This will hopefully allow me to set it on the edge of a PCB that this sits in. And I should be good there. Okay, so I'm done with these. I'm going to take these off. And let me hit save here. I see some errors showing up down here. I don't know what these are, but sync cloud failed. I don't know. We'll see if that is an issue later or not. But it seems like right now, if I go back to the data sheet, that might be enough for this. Okay, so I now have my plug. And why did I name this receptacle? I need to fix that because I am working on the plug. Let's go back over here. This is the 2568. Yeah, and I put the wrong one in here. So this is a plug, and the part number for that is 716612568. Okay. So I've got my plug. For the schematic, I've got my footprint. And I think I have my component or device, they're calling it. So I've got my device. Now I've got to get all this stuff tied together. So if I edit device, looks like I'm in here. Looks like I can assign a 3D model. So personal plug. Okay, that's good. And I can assign a footprint. And so I've got my footprint here from my personal library. Okay, that's good. Looks like I can fill some other things out here. Let's just see if I say save on that. Now there's got to be something where I take my 3D model and get it onto my footprint correctly. And I see I've got the wrong numbers on this, so I need to go correct that. So this is the device. I'm trying to see down here, edit footprint. I want to change the name of the footprint. Modify information. There we go. It is a plug, but I put the wrong number in there. 7166125668. But if I go back into this device and I go back into the 3D model part of it, I can come down here and it looks like I need to turn this plug and 90 degrees. I need to take this piece, turn it 90. So rotation, it's going to be one of these that I have to mess with. Let's try not that one. Not that one. It's always the last one. Okay, so there I've got that turned. And now I want to move the position of it. And I think I'm going to have to do that with these offsets. So you can see here, I'm just, there might be a faster way to do this, but this is how I'm going to do this here. And we'll see if this all lines up on the EasyEDA standard. I had to actually adjust the scaling a little bit to make it come in correctly, but this might actually line up. We'll see. Okay, and now I need to also adjust this. Let's see. So if this is my PCB, I actually need this higher. So let's see, let's pull that up. And so there you can see where there's a gap, which of course I don't want that gap, but so that looks like that should be pretty close. And then now I can compare and see, do I have something wrong in my 3D model between the space of this hole and this one over here? And it does look like I do have something messed up there because this one has a pretty good gap. This one does not, so I've probably got something messed up there. So I'm going to confirm this the way it is, but then let me get back into my footprint and edit that. And I just got to double check. It looks like this I did not space over correctly. Okay, that looks pretty good. So let me get this out of here, save what I've got. Let me go back into where I was. So I've got my device. I've got my 3D model. And now the footprint name is showing up correctly again, so that must be some bug in the product. But now if I go back to this model, should see, and that does look better, like so. So that's looking pretty good. So PCB is right up against the component. And the cut of the edge of the board needs to be right here. So then when I go to put this on whatever host PCB, that's the edge of the PCB that I need to have. You know, this shows it cut right there, but I don't think that actually will be what I'll see on the final PCB. Okay, so that looks like that is my connector connecting out. It's called the plug, and I think that's looking pretty decent. Those pins seem to be nice and centered, so, and these other holes look good. So that maybe indicates that 3D model, I didn't have to do any sizing to it, and what I did on my PCB seems to line up as far as my footprint. So I'm going to confirm all that and see what I have left here. So I think I have a device. I could probably give the device a name. I don't know if I need to do that. Category description. It's going to be a U something as I drag it and place it out. I'm not sure where the image gets used for it, but I'm going to skip that for now. Okay, so maybe with all of that done, I might close out of this, hoping that I've got everything done that I need to build that component. So back over here now, I've got my schematic that I had opened previously. And let's see if I can go add my component to this. Looks like I come up here for component, personal component. There's the component I want to place. So I'm going to place it. And maybe I'll, for now, just update my PCB. So update PCB. And add that. And so that's that footprint. And from there, I'd be curious if I can look at a 3D of this. And it looks like I can do both a 2D. So there's a 2D of this. And I'm going to make the PCB size. I probably have to draw a board outline here. And there is a rectangle. I'm just going to say this is my PCB of this size here. And that put it into the board outline layer. And then I had put in this cut that I basically want to line up with the edge of my board. Something like that. I'm going to see if I can shrink this down. I don't need it so big. So far, this editor seems actually pretty nice, better than the EasyEDA standard version. Okay, I've got something like that. I'm going to save it. Let me try the 2D view again. Okay, so that's what it's showing. It's going to build for the PCB. Let me go back now to a 3D view and just see how this comes out. Yeah, so that's looking pretty good. So then, of course, from there, I would want to actually hook something up to this, and let me just do that. So I'll go back to my schematic, and it would be nice to have a pin header. Okay, a 1x8, 2.54. Let's just try this one and see if this is... So it's now a space to rotate. Okay, I guess I can deal with that. I'm just going to put some headers on here real quick. And then let's just say for the fun of it, I'm going to go ahead and put in VCC here, Alt W for my wire. Okay, and both of those pins. So I just real quick added eight 8-pin headers and then put in some VCC and ground in here just for the fun of it. So now I can go to my PCB after I update. And so my connector I think is already where it needs to be. And then I can go ahead and place in these. And I'll save that. And I assume they have some auto router option built in here. Routing mode. Let's see, auto routing. And I'll have to come back and look at all this later, but I'm going to go ahead and just run this. I probably should look at the design rules too and see what it defaults to for the different design settings. But down here, it's showing a progress bar. Interestingly, it's not showing it try to actually route stuff. And typically I've been using free routing, so I would likely go back and continue to use that, but I'm just going to see what this does real quick. Okay, and so that came through auto routing. Now, did it route everything is a question. Did it route it well? No, it did not route everything, so it failed to route everything, as you can see here. But maybe I'll go check my design rules real quick. Ooh, this looks more detailed than it would have before on the standard version, so I'll have to kind of learn through what they've got here. But it looks like you can see what size vias, pads, tracks are being used by default. What I might do is, as a quick test, get into my copper. Here it is, upper right layer, copper. So here's my stack up. Let's go 2. And maybe I'll do a plain. Okay, so I can do layers here, and now they have a physical stacking. That's kind of cool. Ground. Okay, I'm going to apply that. Now I'm going to assume now I can go to my inner ground and double check the properties of this. And I was just looking for the net, so that's on ground, so that's good. And I'll go back to my layers and go down to my VCC and change that to be my VCC. Okay, so real quick then, layers looks like it's a little bit different up here, but that's all looking fine. And I now have 4 layer, an inner VCC and inner ground. I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'm going to delete. What I want to do is delete all tracks, and they used to have a global delete where I could do that. Now, let's see, let's try a delete objects. Okay, I guess they just put it there. So this is edit, delete objects, and I want to delete all the tracks. Okay, so now we're back to an unrouted. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can export for routing. So auto router. And then I'm going to open up free routing just for now. Okay, and I just opened up that exported DSN, and I'm going to real quickly do a start auto router. This shouldn't take long. So it routed it, now it's just optimizing. And I'm just doing this to kind of go through the paces that I've typically done on a lot of my projects up to this point, just to kind of see how this is all working in EasyEDA Pro. Maybe while it's doing that, I could come back here, and if there's any of these, just silk screen type of things that I want to move around, I could do that. And maybe while it's doing that, if I save all of this, I should be able to go back and say, I want to make a new project. And that's fine. I'll just use whatever name. But then when I get into my new project, it pops a window on a separate screen. So let me bring that over here. I'm now into this other project. I can go into my schematic. I can go up to my components. I can go to personal. And this shows up in my personal library. So I can go ahead and place that. And then I can save. I can convert it to PCB. And off I go. I can place the board outline. And I can view what that's going to look like in 3D. And all the 3D is looking good. So I'm liking all of that. So let me close that, close this. Actually, close this whole thing and get back here. Let's go see how my auto router is doing. That's done. So I will export the results of that. And then come over here. And I should be able to bring that in. So let's see, export. I did the auto router. Now I've got to find the import option, which, where would they place that? Okay, they now have it under file import instead of under the route menu. Seems a little confusing, but that's fine. I'll import then that session file. And there we have things hopefully fully routed. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. And then, of course, DRC check would be something I'd want to do. Okay, design DRC, check DRC. And then I have, it looks like some, one thing I've not done is rebuild my copper. Let's see if they've moved that. So, they've got some other things here that it's not happy about. So that's fine. That's as far as I'll take this then. So right now I would have to work on some of this clearance, and I'm running a pretty thick trace here. So I think I could pull the size of the traces down, but I would have to clean up these DRC errors. But that is the general process, and that all seems to be going through okay. And so now I have a board. I've done some routing on it. There's some clearance issues, so I would have to probably drop down to a smaller trace realistically here, which I'm not going to do right now. But I think I'm liking all of this. So other than me stumbling just to find things where they move things, maybe some keyboard shortcuts have moved, but that's stuff that I can get used to, I think, quite quickly. All of these steps, though, seem to go through pretty well, much better than it did in the standard version. So I'm liking the Pro version. But that's maybe where I'm going to stop for now. So hopefully you found this interesting. This was a pretty long video. Right now I'm over an hour in recording, so we'll see how the trimmed down edited version comes out. But I don't know, curious in your thoughts. Do you like what you're seeing here? Are any of you using EasyEDA Pro? I'm guessing not many of you are, but if you are, let me know what your feedback has been, or are you liking what you're seeing here or not liking what you're seeing? So far, I'd say this seems good for me, and probably I'll work on just learning it better here and doing some more complicated designs or actual PCB layouts, not just this test type of thing real quick. But so far, so good.